Have a lot of good stuff to talk about. We were talking some baseball in studio here. We were talking March Madness as well because I mentioned on the show that I had been to the Big Ten tournament, and the Big Ten has been featuring very prominently in this tournament. So Illinois and Michigan both made it. Michigan's looking strong. That's Mike's team. They're looking pretty dominant. They've got the tougher matchup. They've got Arizona, so that's the tougher matchup on that side. I think a lot of people are assuming whoever wins that matchup will win the whole thing. That's not a foregone conclusion because Illinois has been tough. They've got a very good front court themselves, and they're coming on strong as well. And UConn obviously just upset Duke.
Any given day.
Yep.
Any given day. Doesn't matter.
And I don't think a lot of people had UConn going over Duke in that game.
No, probably not. And until the last minute, nobody did. What a comeback from them. I mean, that was pretty awesome.
That was
feel good for that kid.
Oh yeah. Well, that was a classic. I mean, you think about, because I was having flashbacks at the end to the old Christian Laettner shot because they had roughly the same amount of time left.
Yep.
Duke could have done something similar when they had the ball at the end. And that shot's going to go down with that Laettner shot. That's going to be one that people look back on. I mean, Laettner's probably in his 50s now or something like that.
It's been a while.
And we still go back to that, that shot. Grant Hill was the one on the pass, and he's now on the microphone and in the Hall of Fame. So yeah, they're in their 50s. This kid's a young guy, but we're going to be talking about him when he's 50, no matter what he does, basically from here on out. So that was a pretty cool game in general. And then Michigan's just been dominant on the other side. So that's going to be a front court matchup for the ages, I think, between them and Arizona.
Yeah, they said against Tennessee. I didn't know much about Tennessee at all, but 1 versus 6. But they handled them much like the second game, much unlike, I should say. Michigan poured it on and didn't stop. Duke poured it on early and then seemed to stall some and let them be around. Michigan didn't let Tennessee do that. They got up by 30 or something, and I think 34 was the final score. But I was watching with a buddy and Duke UConn, and they're letting them hang around. They couldn't quite pull away. And my buddy said the rule of thumb is get it 10-ish with 10 minutes to go. 9, 10, 11 points down, and they got it to 9 with 10 to go. But, they still had a chance to pull away, and they didn't.
Nope.
Whatever the reasoning is, they couldn't do it, and, congrats to UConn. That was amazing game to watch.
You could tell how stunned the commentators were by the game because they're usually not speechless, and that's usually a huge moment for them. But Ian Eagle, Bill Raftery, they were basically stunned at the end of that game with how that unfolded. So that was a good one. Yeah, Michigan and Arizona have been kind of the two most dominant teams. So that'll be interesting. Michigan seems to be back to hopefully their dominance that they were at earlier in the season. Ever since LJ Case and their backup point guard went out, that seemed to coincide with the fact that they weren't blowing teams out to the degree that they were. But now I think they've gotten the rotation back into shape. Trey McKinney's kind of slipped into that role. They still have a ton of depth. They still have a lot of bodies to throw at.
The talent level is incredible. All four teams. And it's not like, you don't get to this Final Four without being talented as hell. But overconfidence, assuming, taken for granted, all those things, you still need to take care of business.
Definitely. And I think people have to keep an eye on Illinois because I think they're going to be the team that's going to be forgotten about. You got 2 1 seeds. You've got a 2 seed that just upset the top seed in the bracket, or one of the top seed in their bracket. They're part of the bracket. And Illinois has come on very strong towards the end of the season. They've got a huge front court. They've got a lot of size they can throw at you. And they have a couple guys that have been surging towards the end of the year. They have Keaton Wagler, who's a freshman that's come on really strong, ended up winning Freshman of the Year in the Big Ten. He wasn't really a big part of the team at the beginning of the year. Now he's coming on strong. Pejas Stojakovic's kid, which is wild for me when I start seeing people's kids. I'm sure you've been seeing this for a while, Mike, but now that I know their dads and then I see their kids. This happened with Cecil Fielder.
Yeah.
I can't believe his grandkids are now surging to the major leagues. So
well, do I look that old? Well, okay, I am. Okay. But yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's in the genes. A lot of these people have people. They come up and they've got it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, you've got, I mean, whether you want to get into a genetics versus environment discussion, they have both of them. Well, they have the environment of living with these people, and they've got the genetics.
Yeah, Cecil, Prince used to be around the locker room, back in the day. Lived it.
Oh, yeah.
So...
yeah, he'd be at BP, I remember, in some of the games and stuff. So, yeah, there's some great pictures of them. But, yeah, to think that he's now a dad of two guys that are old enough to get there. But we wanted to talk some baseball with you, speaking of baseball, because you were just down in Lakeland. You did some scouting there for Jethro.
I was advanced scout.
Yeah.
I didn't get paid for it, but I'm going to call that advanced.
We got to talk to Scott about that, I think.
Well, the Tigers didn't pay me, so Scott better.
Well, if he's going to pay for any scouting, it'd be baseball, because that's also his favorite sport too. But we were talking about this first series, how it's just funny to me. I think this is the sports scene in general, and we were talking before the show about kind of how negative thoughts can be pervasive in sports and I guess in life in general, but they can kind of come out in sports. But it's funny, this Detroit market is about as good as it has been sports-wise. Like, the Red Wings are probably the worst team. I'm putting that in quotes. Yeah, and they're still in the playoff
and they're
hunt.
Not horrible. Yeah.
No, they're playing pretty well down the stretch. They're scuffling a little bit, but the Tigers are presumed to be a playoff team. Got a long season. They've got to make it, but they're looking good at the beginning of the season. The Lions are rebuilding, looking good. They still had a positive record last year, and the Pistons are still atop the Eastern Conference. So across the board, you're looking good. But it's funny, you have a pretty good first series against the Padres, and then people still say, "Well, you lost the one game. Yeah, this didn't go right."
And I don't want to be the old guy on the porch next door, but I am. I have a whole different perspective on everything. They're not hitting. The first game they hit pretty well. Second game, not so much. The third game, not so much. All the pitchers performed pretty well, and everybody's ready to jump off the roof because they went 2-1 in their first series. And I was told long ago when the 8 or 10 or 12 game winning streaks are cool, but they don't get you to the end of win every series.
Yep,
2 out of 3. If you have a 3 games or 4 game series split, and take that as a win and move forward. Because I've also been taught that 40 games, take those in packages. It's 162 games. Take those in packages and gauge yourself on those 40 games, how you did, and adjust if you want. Yeah, I'm worried about a couple of the guys on there that are scuffling offensively, but they have coaches. They're on a team for a reason. They're smarter than me. People on social media don't realize that, but they're smarter than you. They're on that team for a reason, and if they can't get it turned around, well, then they'll find somebody else. But it's 3 games. Just take a breath. And they go into Arizona, and I didn't know if I told you this, but they're on 3.
Okay.
I looked it up today. I said, well, why are they on 3? They played the Dodgers.
Oh, similar to how the Tigers started last year.
Yep. But the first game was kind of a blowout, 3 or 4 run win. The last 2 games were 1-run games.
Okay.
So if it were the Tigers going into that, they've seen all this. They know. You don't take those guys lightly. You don't take anybody lightly, even though if they're 0-3.
Oh, yeah, especially in baseball, because, it's so streaky, as you were talking about. You go on these 12-game win streaks, but then sometimes that can be followed by a 12-game losing streak. Like, that's why you want to win the series. Yep. That's, as Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Little packages. Settle down, take a breath. It's a long season. You have to get through it.
And it's funny because I felt very positive after I've seen all 3 games. We'll have to see. Lynn Henning will be our first guest. He's a longtime Detroit News writer, and he's very in depth about this stuff. He has a great he has the Tigers intelligence report, so I figured he was a good fit for the Intel show here. But I will have to get his opinion, but I was feeling very good. Like you said, okay, they lost their last game. It wasn't a blowout. They just couldn't get the bats going. But McGonigal, who's been the big conversation, they did end up pulling him up, and obviously he got off to about as hot of a start as you could. Yeah, he had 3 strikeouts in that third game that everybody's crying about, but they even looked like good at bats there. And yeah, they just couldn't really piece anything together. They were close. But he's looked good, and overall the hitting has looked decent. Like you said, hopefully you can get a few guys going. Carpenter's got to get going. There's certain guys.
Veerling, couple that worry me a little, but let's see. But no, I thought about this today. Okay, 2-1. Everybody's jumping on everything. You got to fix that. Got to fix that. Got to fix that. There's 32 teams. How many of the other 31s are totally happy with how things are going right now?
Oh, yeah.
Just settle down.
Well, to think about where they were last year versus this year, even, and think about the fact of look at the rotation. Like we're 3 games through, so we're at the number 4 starter for tonight in the 4th game, and they still haven't pitched Verlander or Mize yet in the starting rotation. That's a very good, strong, deep starting rotation. The relievers. This is one of the subjects I want to talk about with Lynn, because he had a great article about how the depth in the bullpen should help them a lot, because I had said it a lot on the show last year. They were really overutilizing those relievers. And so when people were saying, well, Tyler Holton doesn't look the same, because he's pitched too many innings.
He's tired.
It's just going to be natural. And then on the hitting side of things, if Veerling, who is off to a slow start and is probably going to need to work his way back into a groove, if he's your worst hitter, if he's the guy at the back end of the bench as far as your fielders and hitters go, you're in pretty decent shape, especially because you're probably due to pull some guys up as the year goes on too.
Yeah, and they're going to mix and match that lineup every day. He said that. It's McGonigal's not going to start every game. He's going to get plenty of bench time, be able to come off the bench, but all those guys, it's a mix and match thing the last few years with Hinge, and he's become a master at that. So I'm willing to give it to the guys that know what the heck they're doing, and I'm going to sit back and hopefully they're right.
And that's a rare but very correct way to go about it, which is leaning on these people that they eat, sleep, and breathe this kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, but lots of people know what they're talking about out there.
Yeah. Well,
not.
Yeah, exactly.